the things that inspire wonder in us are often really unique to us and say something about who we are. And in that sense, it like says something about what you're really passionate about and curious about and excited about.
You're listening to Make Some Noise podcast, episode number 417 with guest Andrea Scher. Welcome to Make Some Noise podcast, your guide for strategies, tools, and insight to empower yourself. I'm your host, Andrea Owen, global speaker, entrepreneur, life coach since 2007, and author of 3 books that have been translated into 18 languages and are available in 22 countries. Each week, I'll bring you a guest or a lesson that will help you maximize unshakable confidence, master resilience, and make some noise in your life. You ready? Let's go. Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of the podcast. As always, I am so glad that you're here. Andrea Scher is here, and she wrote an amazing book that we're going to talk about a little bit, more so just the topic around what her book is about. And I have to say, after having this conversation with her, I am looking around the world a little bit differently. And you'll hear about that as we dive into this really interesting, amazing topic. For those of you who are interested in maybe getting a little bit of support this coming new year, maybe 2022 is going to be your year. I know for many people, I've been talking to them and it feels like they've been telling me that it feels like maybe we're kind of pulling our heads above water at this point, coming up for air. And maybe it can feel like a new beginning. And if that is you, I invite you to head on over to andreaowen.com/apply. And you can either apply to work with me, myself. I do a couple of different things. I have a package of open sessions where you bring your primary focus. Do you want to work on having more self-compassion and maybe stop, having too high expectations or beating yourself up so much? Or I also take people through the Daring Way, which is the modality based on Brené Brown's research that I'm trained and certified in. That's a longer package, a little bit more intense, deep dive, if you will. There's also the opportunity to coach with my lead coaches, Sabrina or Liz, and they both have their areas of specialty, of expertise, and they're both phenomenal. They were hand selected by me. Amazing, amazing coaches. So if you fill out an application, we will let you know who we think is the best pick, and you can have a phone call with either of them or with me, and we can figure out what's going to be the best support for you. And I always want to make sure that you are making the best decision for you. So head on over to andreaowen.com/apply and we will get you started. All right, let's get into it. For those of you that don't know Andrea, let me tell you a little bit about her. Andrea Scher is an artist, author, and life coach whose work is driven by her belief in the transformative power of creativity. She guides women to feel more brave, joyful, and vibrant through her innovative use of creativity as a springboard for self-empowerment. For nearly 2 decades, her popular approach has thrilled attendees and listeners, resulting in her award-winning blog, superhero journal, and best-selling e-courses. She interviews authors, artists, and other creative thinkers of our time on her Creative Superheroes podcast and has been featured in books by Brené Brown and Sark and in Lapham's Quarterly and more. Her new book, Wonder Seeker, 52 Ways to Wake Up Your Creativity and Find Your Joy, straddles the world of creativity and mindfulness, playfully inspiring readers to live more vibrant lives of presence, joy, and connection. So without further ado, here is Andrea. Andrea, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Andrea.
It's funny because I think we've had this conversation offline before. Andrea isn't a super common name. So for me personally, when I meet another Andrea, it's always a little bit exciting.
It's so true. I know. And then it's like, how do you pronounce it? No, I pronounce it like this. So we have the same pronunciation.
Yes, we do. We do. Same name twinsies. I'm so glad to have you on because you've we've been internet friends for so long, and we're in a mastermind together for a short time. And I absolutely love your work. You've been, I think, actually in the biz, in the industry, even longer than I have. And I love watching people's work evolve. And now you have a book baby out, which is so incredibly exciting. Wonder Seeker, 52 Ways to Wake Up Your Creativity and Find Your Joy. And let's start like from the very beginning.
Okay.
Like for people who aren't totally sure, because it's jargon. We have jargon in our industry. So how do you define wonder?
It's actually a great question, because some people think of it as like wonder, like curiosity, like a verb, like I'm going to wonder, which is beautiful. And that's one of the parts of wonder, is it inspires curiosity. And also it sort of goes the other way, where if you are a curious person, you might actually experience more wonder. So there's that. But the wonder that most excites me, that I'm really talking about in the book, is the kind of wonder where you see something beautiful or unexpected, often in nature, and you have this like somatic experience of like, wow. And like your eyes get wide and your heart opens and you have this like expansive feeling in your body. And I just love that. Like, that's part of living like a vibrant, juicy life for me, is experiencing that, not just when I, go to the Grand Canyon or fly to Barcelona or whatever.
Like the obvious things. Yeah.
Yeah. I might be lucky enough to do one day, but really in our ordinary lives, like, can I be a person that lives like that's sort of the thread of my life, in my ordinary life, in my messy, imperfect life? Can I also experience that?
So it sounds like when you explain it that way, I think that children experience that a lot more than adults too. Correct?
Yes. Absolutely. And I think that's why we need a book about wonder, like
for grown-ups. Yeah.
Exactly. To remind us. And it's why I've been practicing this for, very consciously for like 25 years, like, because I think it's in part, it's a gateway to joy. And it's part of it's experiencing the world with fresh eyes, with creative eyes. And, so, okay, let me ground this in some examples, because I don't want to get too sort of theoretical about it.
Okay.
But like, there's the examples of like, you see the night sky for the first time when you're camping and you're like, oh my God, I didn't know there were so many stars.
Right.
Like that. I mean, every time I see the night sky, I'm like, oh my God, this is amazing. So there's definitely like places in nature where we can experience it pretty easily. What about you, Andrea, though? Like, I'm curious, like, do you have any memories of wonder that pop up for you when I say that?
I remember being very young and being just enamored by the full moon, and actually the moon at any stage that it was in. Even my mom tells the story of me being very young, not having a whole lot of words, but I definitely said the word moon and I would point to it. And also, even as an adult, I think, now I live in North Carolina, and, we're recording this in October, and the leaves are changing, and we've lived here since 2015, and it's always just stunning. So I do take the time to look at it and just revel in the gloriousness of how many different colors they are. And also that we get to see it for such a short time, which almost makes it that much more, not that it makes it more beautiful, but I just have such a bigger sense of gratitude because it's temporary.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. So, right. So you're pointing to like beauty, like natural beauty, and
yes.
And even the wonder of like the mystery of like the moon and its phases, and like the way it pulls the tides, and the way that our cycles as women are connected to it. Like there's all this like beauty and mystery attached to the moon. So that's a great place to find wonder.
Do you define wonder as also, because now I'm thinking of something else that just makes me upset. Like, I'm obsessed. This is why I went to college for exercise physiology, because I thought about going to medical school for like 5 minutes. And then I'm like, I just can't, it's way too much science.
Yeah.
But I got my bachelor's of science in exercise physiology, partly because I am so fascinated by how the human body works. We are really all animals, but the human body in particular, I am fascinated and have been for as long as I can remember. Everything down from the way that our feet are put together anatomically to work so perfectly with all those ligaments and tendons and muscles and bones and the insertions and how they're attached. And also conception, pregnancy, and labor and delivery is like, oh my God, it is the most miraculous thing that it happens as it does naturally. And just like, can we just talk about the uterus for a second? Like this muscle, like
weird magical creatures.
Oh my God. Like the placenta. Like, are you kidding me? Like that probably makes me the most excited about the human body. I can't even like put into words how wondrous that is. So that's different than like nature. Cause I thought that you were just talking about like beautiful things.
Oh no, it's not just beautiful things. In fact, I love that example. And I love knowing that you were studying the body in that way and were considering even becoming a medical doctor because of it. So the things that inspire wonder in us are often really unique to us and say something about who we are. And in that sense, it like says something about what you're really passionate about and curious about and excited about. And because I don't marvel at the human body in the same way that you do. And I have another friend who is this really incredible artist in San Francisco. His name is Abraham. And when I asked him this question, what's a memory, an early memory of wonder for you? He said, the first thing that's coming to my mind is when my dad used the word complacent when I was about 9 years old. And I heard it and I immediately got curious, like, what does that mean? And then he told me what complacent meant. And he said, my head kind of exploded, like one word could capture so much meaning and so much. It was like there was philosophy in there. There was like a way of living your life in there, like all in this one word. And he's made, his life is this like full of like this very intellectual curiosity and art. And he said in that moment, he decided he would never be complacent. And like, wow. So these moments of wonder, especially from our early childhood, are really poignant and often say something about who we become.
Interesting. Okay. So not everyone is interested in dissecting a cadaver.
No, that's hysterical. Apparently you are. I love it. That's amazing.
I was disappointed that we only got to dissect cats in my anatomy class because the junior college I was at, they just didn't have the refrigeration that it takes to house all these, dead bodies for a certain amount of time. And I'm like, no one else is disappointed by that. And I'm like, I've even thought about taking that class just because it blows my mind. There's a scene in Grey's Anatomy. Oh my God, it was so funny. Let me tell you a quick story. Yeah. There's a scene, it's in the first season, where the character Alex, he has to pull someone's like eyelid back just slightly and stick a needle underneath that person's eyelid to drain fluid from their brain. And my husband was like horrified at that scene. He was like, oh my God. And it takes a lot for him to be like grossed out. And I like leaned forward and I'm like, like I would be like the character Christina, like sign me up for all the surgeries. I want to see it. I don't necessarily want to like do surgery. That to me, that feels like so much responsibility, but I just want to be there and witness it. It's just fascinates the shit out of me. So anyway, we'll move on.
Well, I love that. I'm thinking of one more example that I'll just share just so people can understand like this. There's like a huge range of like what wonder is, right? I use the examples from nature because they're the most sort of accessible place to find it. And we know how to name that wonder. Yeah. Like a friend of mine named Başak, she's from Turkey and she was camping with her dad and her family one year when she was little. And her dad somehow built a kiln out of like the earth, like the red clay earth that they were camping on. And he built a kiln. It must've been really hot out or something. And they actually fired pottery somehow out when they were camping. And she ended up becoming an industrial designer. Isn't that cool?
That's so neat. Yeah. Okay. Shopify's already taken the cash register online, helping millions sell billions around the world. But did you know that Shopify can do the same thing at your retail store? Give your point of sale system a serious upgrade with Shopify. With Shopify, you get a powerhouse selling partner that effortlessly unites your in-person and online sales into one source of truth. Track every sale across your business in one place and know exactly what's in stock. Connect with customers inline and online. Shopify helps you drive store traffic with plug-and-play tools built for marketing campaigns from TikTok to Instagram and beyond. Get hardware that fits your business. Take payments by smartphone, transform your tablet into a point of sale system, or use Shopify's POS Go mobile device for a battle-tested solution. Sign up for a $1 per month trial period at shopify.com/noise, all lowercase. Go to shopify.com/noise to take your retail business to the next level today. Shopify.com/noise. It's hard to find a great mentor who can help me level up. My dream mentor, Shonda Rhimes. So I was really excited when I heard she has a class on Masterclass. With Masterclass, you can learn from the best to become your best. Masterclass is the only streaming platform where you can learn and grow with over 200 plus of the world's best. For just $10 a month, an annual membership with Masterclass gets you unlimited access to every instructor. And you can access Masterclass on your phone, computer, smart TV, or even in audio mode. I'm always looking for ways to be a better writer, so I took Shonda Rhimes' screenwriting class. It helped me gain concrete technical advice, including structuring, the writing process, and with shows under her belt like Grey's Anatomy and Bridgerton, it was so helpful. Plus, every new membership comes with a 30-day money-back guarantee. Don't wait another moment to start your learning journey with Masterclass. Right now, our listeners get an additional 15% off any annual membership at masterclass.com/Andrea. That's 15% off at masterclass.com/Andrea. Masterclass.com/Andrea.
Well, I know a lot of my audience struggles sometimes with anxiety. And so in the book, you talk about how wonder can be an antidote to anxiety. Can you say more about that? Yeah. So I'm a very anxious person naturally. Mm-hmm. I actually finally, after decades of trying to manage my anxiety with, kelp and kale and
right
yoga and all the things.
Meditation.
Yeah, exactly. I started taking medication for like generalized anxiety and a panic disorder, and that's really helped. However, for all those decades that I was very actively managing my nervous system, as a photographer, I just started going outside and taking my camera with me wherever I'd go. And this is pre-cell phone. So it wasn't like I just had my phone with me. I would actually carry my camera and I would just walk myself around my neighborhood in San Francisco and ask myself, okay, what's beautiful or interesting? And just that question alone would drop me into the present moment. It would take me out of like the kind of chaotic swirl of my thoughts, or even like the physiological kind of symptoms that I would be having where I couldn't quite get a full breath all day. And somehow I would drop into this state of flow pretty quickly. And now I call that wonder spotting. That's just like my sort of whimsical name for it. And it's part of the book. But creating a noticing practice, especially if you're a visual person, is a really powerful medicine for managing our nervous system. And so even during the pandemic, when, we were all anxious, you probably noticed that you felt better if you were able to take a walk, just be outside and like take a walk. So I think it's part like moving your body in that physical way. But if this added element of like, what's beautiful, sort of like, I call it like putting on your wonder goggles. It's sort of like, you put on your wonder goggles and then you see the world a little bit differently. And then the other thing that you're doing is that you're creating a new neural pathway, or you're deepening a neural pathway that maybe you're not using so much. And that is like, so there's this Dr. Rick Hansen here in Berkeley, and he talks about the negativity bias. Have you heard about that?
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah. So for people who don't know, it's like we basically, we're wired to scan for what's wrong in our environment so that we can survive. It's like a holdover from a time.
That's why we hold on to like negative reviews or negative feedback instead of the compliments and praise.
Exactly. So in order to kind of level the playing field neurologically and give yourself a chance at experiencing more joy, you actually need to train yourself to also scan for what's working and what's beautiful and what's good. Wonder spotting is one way to do that. So I think all of that sort of mixed together, it really helped me over the years manage my system.
I love that. And I love the question that you said a few minutes ago. What is beautiful or interesting?
Yeah.
It's not just what is beautiful.
Right.
Because some things can elicit that feeling of wonderment without actually being beautiful. It's just interesting. And beauty is subjective, and so is interest.
Exactly. Sometimes I just ask myself, what have I never noticed before? So it becomes a little bit of a treasure hunt. Like, oh, I've never noticed that there's a persimmon tree right there. Mm-hmm. And then you're like, have I not noticed it because it's persimmon season and now they're here? And like, so you just start seeing things that I think our brains are very efficient. We just selectively, we see the same thing over and over again. We think the same thoughts over and over again. Mm-hmm. And this is a way, all the practices in the book are sort of ways to interrupt this default mode that we are in so that we can jump into a more wondrous space and not like, so there's like muggle world and magic world. Yeah. And so it's like a way to pivot into magic world a little bit more of the time.
One of the things I love about this book, as you mentioned, there's so many different practices that you name, so many, and it's gorgeous. There's pictures in this book. Yes. So many beautiful pictures.
Thank you.
Which, most nonfiction books don't have that. And so they're colorful and gorgeous and stunning. And okay, so I feel like I am more of a muggle mind. And let me explain, because I don't know if the way my brain works is more common or uncommon. I am typically oblivious to my surroundings. And I don't know if it's an ADD thing or if it's a neurodivergence thing or just personality or what. I tend to not notice. So I'm really good at remembering people's names, terrible at remembering their faces, which I know a lot of people are the opposite. Right. They can remember someone's face even out of context, but will never remember their name. And I'm exactly the opposite. And so speaking of trees, we've lived in this neighborhood for 5 years, and it's right across the street and a little bit down, not directly across the street. There's a tree that must have just been a sapling at one point and grew into a tree, just got lucky and grew into a tree. It's a decent sized tree at this point. It's probably, I don't know, maybe 9 or 10 feet tall. I just noticed it the other day. And I asked my husband, has that tree always been there? And he looks at me like, are you joking? Because it's very obvious. And I had never noticed it. Like if someone said, draw a picture of across the street, I could tell you the gigantic oak tree that's in my neighbor's yard, gigantic, but not this other tree. I would have, and I've always kind of half joked, like if when I worked at the bank, I was a bank teller for a long time. If we get robbed, I will not be able to tell you what the person looked like. I will not be able to tell you if they had facial hair, nothing. But I could tell you the sound of their voice. And if they told me their name, I would remember.
That is so interesting. Yes, I love it. So in your world, then, like, this isn't like the easiest pivot for you.
Exactly. That's why I bring it up. I'm not just like talking about myself for the sake of talking about myself. I'm saying like, I have to consciously do this. And I like that what did you call it? Like a wonder break or something?
Wonder spotting.
Wonder spotting. Yes. Because I believe that it's learned. But it's just easier for some people.
Yes. I mean, I'm oriented toward visuals. I've always been a photographer since I was a kid. I remember everybody's faces, even if I don't remember their names. So you're right. I'm really oriented toward visual. I'm really oriented toward beauty and light. And it's partly right because I've trained myself as a photographer and I'm a portrait photographer on top of that. So, and I look at everybody like some people, when, you pass someone on the street, they don't actually look at the person. I like full on look at every single person I pass by because I'm curious what their face looks like. And that's probably a little unusual too.
Yeah, I don't. I don't know if it's like an eye contact thing or what, but it's super fast. I'm always fascinated too with like how people's brains work and like how yours is different than mine and what I can learn from other people and also train my brain. Cause I love the neuroplasticity and the understanding that we can train ourselves. And so I love that, like, I'm just like glancing at your book right now and like number 17 was find faces in everyday things, which I love that. I do see faces like in wood and things like that. That's fun.
Yeah.
in unlikely
Right.
places.
So yeah, so now I'm intrigued by how our brains are oriented a little bit differently. Yeah, were there any activities in there that you remember that sort of stood out for you as like, oh, I might want to try that?
You mean that might be a little bit harder?
No, just kind of resonated for you.
Well, I loved the leave a love note on a banana.
Oh yeah.
Because I love to leave love notes. I think I don't know. My
Oh.
mom used to leave them in my lunch all the time, and maybe that's where I picked it up. But that you can write directly on an orange or a banana. I feel like the texture of an orange might be harder to write on with a ballpoint pen unless you have a Sharpie or something. But
Yeah, bananas are perfect. They just
yeah,
glide right along,
glide right on.
and then if the banana bruises, it makes the writing even a little bit more intense and legible. Yeah.
I've always been too nervous to write on money though. I don't know. Maybe it's just because I know that you're not supposed to, but I love the thought of leaving love notes behind for people so they can spot them.
Yeah.
That's one of my favorites. Okay. So what is the difference between, because you said a few minutes ago that wonder is can come right before joy. So how do you differentiate between wonder and joy?
So in all the ways that I experience wonder, and I experience it, in deep connection with someone else, and that doesn't have to be like a super happy, joyful moment. It could be like a really sacred moment where someone is sharing something really beautiful and deep and personal and intimate with me. And then I feel this like deep connection with them and empathy or resonance. And that can feel like wonder to me as well. But I think there's like a heart opening quality in all of these examples and a kind of joy that arises as well. So it's not like, yay, everything's great kind of joy. It's like that deeper joy or a deeper well-being of like, I am present. I am connected to myself, maybe to nature, maybe to someone else. And there's just a real like authentic joy that comes from that, from presence, really.
Mm-hmm. Do you find that, speaking of presence, and do you find that wonder spotting or just trying this exercise a lot, maybe with other people or yourself, like brings a bigger sense of connection with yourself and other people? Because I know you talk about that in the book as well.
You mean wonder spotting specifically, or
just the topic of wonder at all, and what that has to do with connection?
Yeah. Well, like I asked you that question of like, can you, think of a memory of wonder in your life? I find it that everyone has an answer to that question, and it's really unique for each person. And people kind of like, they get into this sort of like yummy kind of wondrous place when they talk about it, and they remember. And like I say, it's somatic. It's like they remember in their bodies, like this feeling of maybe from childhood or something where there's a kind of reverence for being alive and being in the world. And as someone who's experienced a lot of depression and anxiety in her life, I think I'm really interested in how do we create better conditions for those kinds of feelings to arise in us. Mm-hmm. And as far as connection with other people, I think it's that open-hearted thing. It's like, so if you do say experience, wonder at the night sky and you see the moon rising or something like really miraculous like that happening, you feel a kind of love for the world. And that love like makes you want to protect the world, the planet, which is a really powerful and crucial thing at this moment in our lives. And I think the same goes for other people. When we are in deep connection and presence with other people, which is why there's a whole section in the book called The Wonder of Connection. It's like, that's how we can love each other better and see each other with fresh eyes, not like, oh, I know who you are. I know everything about you. Mm-hmm. You're like this. I know everything. It's like we have to practice actually not knowing maybe our partner and being like, maybe there's something new to discover, a new way that I can see this person. And that further opens my heart to them and allows me to love them more. Does that answer your question? I'm not sure.
It does. And I love that so much. I love that this topic can bring in so many different elements of our personal development. And it seems like it's, I don't know if untapped is the word that I'm looking for, but just like underutilized, under talked about
Yeah.
is, getting to know what makes us wonder. Today's podcast is sponsored by MIDI Health. Ladies, are you over 40 like me and dealing with hot flashes, insomnia, brain fog, moodiness, some vaginal dryness, or weight gain? Don't just accept it as part of aging. These symptoms are often linked to hormonal changes during perimenopause and menopause. At MIDI Health, they get it. Their experts know what you're going through and how to help. MIDI clinicians are menopause specialists offering safe, effective, FDA-approved solutions. And guess what? MIDI care is covered by insurance. So stop pushing through it alone. Schedule a virtual visit and dive deep into your unique symptoms and health background. You'll walk away feeling heard and with a plan to start feeling better. Visit MIDI Health today and reclaim your well-being. You deserve to feel great. Book your virtual visit today at joinmidi.com. That's joinmidi.com. joinmidi.com. You know, when you're listening to a song on the radio and you get the profound feeling that the song playing was written about you? Now imagine having the power to gift that same incredible feeling to someone you love with an original song from Songfinch that actually is written just for them. Songfinch lets you create an original radio quality song inspired by your own life and the people you love. It's completely unique, personal, and lasts forever. Whether your song is for Father's Day, an upcoming graduation, wedding, or anniversary, or even just a gift to show your loved one how much you care, start your song now to lock in one of Songfinch's top artists. I gifted Songfinch to myself, a song about my late father, and I'm so excited to play you a clip.
Flipping through the slides of learning how to live and how to love, and coming undone a father, daughters without, so she writes it down.
One of my clients heard about Songfinch from this podcast, and so she had a song created for her son who was graduating, and she told me that they both cried when she played it for him and that it exceeded her expectations. For a limited time, Songfinch is letting our listeners upload their song to Spotify for free, so you and the lucky person you gift it to can listen to it anywhere, anytime. Go to songfinch.com/noise and start your song. After you purchase, you'll be prompted to add Spotify streaming for your original song for free, a $50 value. Again, my URL is songfinch.com/noise. Don't forget to share your song with us too. songfinch.com/noise. Talking to you, I remember more things.
Oh, I want to hear.
We had, God, I must have been 5 because we have pictures of me with the kittens and our cat Buffy. She was this white, super fluffy cat, and she had like gray ears. She had kittens. And they were, my mom had set up a cardboard box for, her to give birth. And it was like in the hall closet. So, she could shut the door and have privacy. And the kittens were super tiny. Like, I don't think that they had even opened their eyes yet. And my mom had told me, don't pick up the kittens, leave them alone to be with their mama for a while. We cannot play with them yet. And I remember just being like, oh, I can't help myself. Like, I can't, like, they're so cute. I need to pick them up. And I picked them up and I got caught and I got in trouble. But I remember that. And there's a picture of me, again, probably like 5 years old, with one of the kittens wrapped up in a towel and its eyes were open at that point. And I'm just like smiling so big. And so, yes, that's a moment of wonder where I just could not, I had to hold it. I had to hold the kitten.
Oh, exactly. Oh, I love that. So sweet.
Well, tell us, what does it mean? And you may have already answered this by talking about the wonder spotting, but what does it mean to be a wonder seeker?
Yeah. So I'm still sort of living in that question, right? So the whole book is sort of me asking, okay, how do we create better conditions for this really incredible emotion to arise in us? How do we design a life that is full of wonder and therefore has us have this really vibrant experience of being alive? And so I think being a wonder seeker is someone who wants to live in that way, someone who wants to seek beauty, is really vibrant and open-hearted, someone who delights easily. Have you ever met one of those old women that is just like, isn't it amazing? Aren't we lucky? Like, I have a godmother in San Francisco who I'm just marvel at her because she is so delighted by life, no matter what we're doing. She's so excited about it. And I'm like, wow, she's a wonder seeker. Like, I want to be like that. I want to be full of gratitude and present and in total delight as much as possible by my totally ordinary life.
Totally ordinary existence. That's interesting. Do you think that if it were 2018 or 2019, like pre-pandemic, would you have written this book differently or talked about wonder differently, or is it the same?
I think I would have, it would be the same book, but it was all the more poignant to be writing it during 2020. And I think one of the reasons I got the book deal, after 25 years of like writing and blogging and doing all these things I've been doing, I think when we shopped the book and we were a month into quarantine, it really resonated and landed as like, oh, I get it. This is medicine for this moment. People need this. And so I think it was sort of divine timing in that way. And the game for me, when I was writing it, I had a very short window. I had like 4 months to write it because they wanted to publish it as quickly as possible. In fact, they ended up moving the pub date to later, but originally it was going to be this spring. And so in order to finish the book and to protect the energy of the book, I had to really shield myself from going down any, sort of dark paths in my own mind during the pandemic. Because of course I was listening to the news and I knew what was going on. It wasn't just shut myself off, but I had a rigor about tending my spirit and tending my joy and tending my view of the world, which was, yes, there are all these things happening and they're terrifying and they're anxiety producing and uncertain and all of that. And there was loss in my life as well as, so many other people's losses. And I also had to ask myself this question of like, and what else is here? And I think that's the most important question. Again, when we're rewiring our brains, it's like, okay, yes. And what else is here? And the fact is that like, there were hummingbirds everywhere when I'd go on my walks. In fact, the birds were so loud during the pandemic because we had never been quiet enough to hear them. Right. And it turns out all my neighbors are amazing people that I finally got to know. And there was a wonder in that. There was a wonder in like the simplicity of our lives and how everything got stripped down and there was nowhere to go and there was no invitations to say yes to. And that felt like a relief. And I don't know, it was like, like I said, there was something rigorous about holding onto what, I can say in Berkeley is like the vibration of joy and the vibration of wonder as I was writing this book inside of a really stressful time.
I love that answer so much because I think especially people with anxious minds like you and I, and I think like so many of my listeners, I think sometimes we are so far into it chemically that this can feel next to impossible. But if you're not like asking yourself the question, I love that. What else is there? I also love the question, tell me something good, because I know when we're anxious, especially like I really struggled at the onset of the pandemic. I did a whole podcast episode about it. I was like spiraling into like all the negatives and all the what ifs and the doom Googling and all of that. And so, but it's like, if you're not too far down, you could ask yourself, okay, yes, things are really hard. And what else? Like what's beautiful? What's wondrous and miraculous? And I think that gets thrown around in different formations in our industry, about gratitude and things like that. But it never goes out of style. Just
because it works. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And there have been times, okay. So another thing I really want to be clear about is that in the book and just in my life in general, it's like, this is not about stepping over what's hard and looking on the bright side or staying positive or go, it's not that. It's really like meet what's here and be present with what's here. And what's here might be, oh my God, I'm terrified this morning. And, I'm terrified about money or something's happening and it needs my attention. It needs me to meet it with compassion.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think there's even a couple of exercises in the book that are really about like, meeting whatever shows up with friendliness so that you can have the capacity to hold both the light and the dark. Because, so there's that Brene Brown quote that you probably know, Andrea, which is like, you can't selectively numb emotions.
Right.
Right. So if we numb the hard stuff, then we're also numbing our joy. We're like narrowing our range of what we are allowing ourselves to feel. And so to have access to wonder and joy, you also have to be able to be with what's hard and what's difficult. And when I say like, meet what's here, it's like, sometimes what's here like is that nothing's wrong and your mind is going cray cray and your mind is going into these directions that aren't useful. And that's when I would take myself on one of those wonder spotting walks. Then it's like, okay, let's interrupt that because that isn't useful and I can't do anything about that. And let's like pivot and deepen this other groove for a little while and see if that shifts my energy.
Do you recommend people have like accountability partners in this work? Or because I imagine for you and maybe people have done this for a long time, it has become a bit of a habit where if you find yourself kind of spiraling, you're like, okay, I need to go on a wonder spotting walk or do, something to pull me out of this kind of rut that you're in. But I see people doing it as like with the buddy system,
Yeah. Well, I think that what's really useful about the buddy system is first, you have somebody who you can be real with, right? Yeah. So hopefully that buddy, right, is someone who you're like, whoa, I'm going down. I have like a dark cloud over me day. I can feel it. I think I just need to shift my energy. Will you just hold space for me? And I'm, just hold that knowing for me while I try to shift my energy. Or sometimes just sharing what's going on with someone can really help alleviate that.
Yeah.
One thing that I do recommend in the book is to find a gratitude buddy. And, I've done that in different times in my life, just via email, like somebody who I maybe want to get to know a little bit better, who's far away and we don't get to talk on the phone very often. It's like, you literally just send like 3 things, like, gratitudes today, that first sip of coffee, the sky that had puffy clouds and, my body doesn't hurt, maybe
my dog is healthy today. Yeah,
exactly. And then, there's no explanation. You don't have to create context. It's just like you send that out and then at some point they send theirs back. And, that's a really beautiful thing. But, gratitude at the times when I was most depressed felt very luxurious and lofty. Like, are you kidding me? Gratitude? That felt very far away. And so I think, again, that's why these little walks were helpful, because if I could say, okay, what have I never noticed before? What's interesting? That was as close as I could get to gratitude.
Yeah. What's interesting?
Yeah.
I like that almost baby step for somebody who's in that place.
Yeah.
I cannot say that I have ever had anyone on the podcast that has talked about this. So it's a first, and I'm so glad. I'm so happy to have you on. Again, everyone, the book is called Wonder Seeker, 52 Ways to Wake Up Your Creativity and Find Your Joy. And where do you want people to go to find more of you and more about the book? Where can they get the book?
Yeah. So if you go to andreascher.com/book, you'll find all the places that have the book, which are, all the normal places. But if you go to that page, you can sign up for the read along. So I'm doing like a Wonder Seeker read along e-course. So we can do some of these activities in community and share about them. And I read from the book and just have like a fun little free e-course. So once you purchase the book, be sure to sign up for that. And then
fun.
Yeah.
I think that's how I actually was introduced to you way back in like, I want to say 2010, because Brene Brown was doing a read along for, I feel like it was, I think that The Gifts of Imperfection had just come out. And this was back when she just had her blog and it was MP3s. Like the people weren't really doing podcasts, and she had MP3s on her site that were like embedded into her site, and you had to go there and do the read along. And I was doing that. And it was the first time I had found out that she was sober. And that kind of put me on my path to do that. But that's how I was introduced to your work. And that's when you were still a photographer, correct?
Yes. And I had done I think her author photo for that book is one that I did.
That's right. Okay.
Yeah. But we were connected in other ways as well. Yeah.
That's funny. Yes. And like, I think Jen Lemon and Jen Loudon were mentioned in that. And that's how I was introduced to those amazing women. And that's funny how we all come full circle and over a decade later.
Yes.
Thank you so much for being here. I'm grateful for your friendship and your perspective on this and giving me and listeners a new tool to be able to put into their toolbox. And of course, everyone, all those links are in the show notes. And it's SCHER, your last name, for AndreaScher.com. And anything that I missed that you have on the tip of your tongue that you want to say before we close up?
Oh my gosh. No, this was so great. Thank you so much. It's so fun. I didn't know I'd have so much fun talking about my book until I started talking about it.
Good.
And I just so appreciate your questions and your curiosity and your sharing. So thank you. Made it so rich and great.
Awesome. And thank you everyone for listening. I know how valuable your time is. And remember, it's our life's journey to make ourselves better humans and our life's responsibility to make the world a better place. Bye, everyone. Hey everyone, thanks again for listening to the show. And just a quick reminder that if your company needs a speaker or a trainer, I might be the right person for you. I speak and do keynotes on confidence and resilience for mixed audiences, as well as do trainings on the Daring Way, which is the methodology based on the research of Dr. Brené Brown. So if you think it might be a good fit, hit me up at support@AndreaOwen.com or head over to my speaking page, AndreaOwen.com/speaking.
I'd like to introduce you to the Minimalist Moms podcast. It's hard enough being a mom, and the last thing you need is stress from too much stuff and an overcrowded schedule. For too long, I lived with the mindset that bigger was better, and the more I added to my life, instead of feeling better, I felt overwhelmed. It was time for a radical new mindset. Less is more. I'm not into extremes. I didn't throw everything away. My brand of minimalism is more about adding than subtracting. Get rid of the excess to make room for what you love. In other words, it's about living life with purpose. I hope you'll listen in, and my guest and myself can inspire you to think more and do with less. The Minimalist Moms podcast, available wherever you listen to podcasts.